Hi, this is part of your Advent Craft Kit. This is a salt dough ornament kit and it's a really good recipe. What you're going to get is a bag of a salt flour mix and the recipe to make more of it. You should be able to make at least 2, possibly 3 or 4 ornaments out of this amount of mix. It's 3/4 of a cup. And what you will need, you're also going to get a little hook for one ornament. What you will need to have on your table that you'll have to provide is a mixing bowl, some water, a 1/4 cup measure, a toothpick for the arms of your snowman. We're going to break that in half. Something to poke a hole in your ornaments with. I'm using a bamboo skewer that's already been cut down. A spatula so you can scoop this up and put it on a cookie sheet for baking. A pencil to poke little eyes and nose if you're making a snowman or an angel. You might want to poke some holes in it. And a butter knife in order to cut some of the dough so you can separate it to make a few more ornaments. And you'll need a cookie sheet. You might need to have a dish towel or a paper towel just to keep your fingers clean. So I have 3/4 of a cup of salt and flour mix in this bowl. It's the same amount that you would have in your bag. And I'm going to take 1/4 cup of water. And let's see if it's enough to get this all mixed together. It's a really nice bread dough consistency when it's mixed up. This recipe, I've gone through a lot of recipes for salt dough in my life, and this is a good one. Look at how crumbly and plump it's looking there, but I think it's still got a little bit of dryness. Let me see if I can get it together with my fingers. So it was 3/4 of a cup of the dry mix, which is what's in your bag, and 1/4 cup of flour. 1/4 cup of water, excuse me. And you know what? I'm not going to add any more water because I feel that although there are dry parts to this, there's a lot of wet parts. You see it sticking to my fingers. So I'm just going to try and mush it together with my hands. You could use a spoon, but the spoon won't tell you how wet it is, so I like to get my hands dirty. I hope you do too. I'm going to add 2 more drops of water. Let's say you put in 2 drops of water and it turns out that it was actually like an extra tablespoonful of water and it's kind of sticky. You could just get a little more flour from your baking supplies. Just sprinkle a teaspoon of flour on top because you want it to stick together like this. This is a salt dough. It's not a cookie that you would eat. It's going to make an ornament. Please don't eat this. You won't want to taste it, I'll tell you. It's salty, salty, salty. All right, this is a pretty good dough now. Look at this. Yeah, I can mush that and it's like a flour clay. I'm going to knead it. Kneading means rolling it and squeezing it with your hands. It helps to mix the wet parts into the dry parts. I'm using a plastic tablecloth, but I don't have any flour on this table. You shouldn't need any. It's not like a sticky butter dough because it's not an edible cookie. I think I have enough to make quite a few ornaments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this in half. I want to make 4 ornaments, so I'm going to divide it in 4 pieces. It doesn't matter if they're perfectly the same size. And I'm going to put 3 over there. And now the first one I'm going to make is a little Christmas bread. I'm going to show you how to make that one. Here's some pictures of what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll like a little potato shape. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. It's almost like a rounded rectangle. And see how thick that? Not too thick. It's about the thickness of my pinky. It might be, if you're a very small person, it might be the thickness of your first finger, your index finger. But for me, pinky thickness is pretty good for this type of dough. And now I'm going to take my butter knife and I'm going to make 2 slots that do not go all the way to the top edge. So it kind of looks kind of like a, I don't know, like a comb. The top stays together. And that's this picture over here. Next thing I'm going to do is take one side, lift it up and go over the middle. Now I'm going to pick up the right side. So I've started with the left side and I've gone over the center. Now I'm going to take the opposite side and go over the center. See, every time you do that, a different piece of the dough becomes the center. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to take the first side again, go over the center. I'm going to take the last side, go the right side, go over the center, and I'm going to back and forth like that. Now I've got something that looks like a little braid. If you know how to braid hair, this is going to be easy for you. I'm wetting my finger because water is going to help this dough stick to itself. So if I was going to add parts, like when we do the snowman, you're going to see that I'll add parts to that. And I kind of made the bottom end round. And now I'm going to go back up to this first side, and I am going to cut it through. If you do that in the beginning, you've got too many loose parts to deal with. And I'm going to go under, under, under. And here is my little Christmas loaf. I'm going to bake that up. But before I bake it up, I'm going to put a hole in it. I'm going to put a hole in this end. I want something that I can put a thread through and put it on my Christmas tree. It turns out I didn't need this. This is a pretty plump piece of dough. I'm going to use some water on my finger. If there are any crackly looking parts. And I'm going to put this on my cookie sheet. There's one ornament that I'm going to bake. The next thing I'm going to make is a snowman. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by cutting a couple little pieces. And don't feel that you're not allowed to use these until you get to them. If you need more parts for your snowman, go and take some more out of one of the other pieces. I'm going to make him a little bit flat. I'm not going to make a snowman standing up like this. I'm going to make him flat so he can be an ornament for my tree. So I'm going to make a little ball. That's his fat little bottom. I'm going to make another ball for his middle body. I'm going to flatten it out. And I'm going to put a little bit of water near the top edge of the first ball so that the second ball kind of attaches to it. It's going to stick. Kind of cool. And this I think is going to be his head. I'm going to save a little for his hat. I'll flatten that out a little bit too. I'm going to put some water near the top edge of the middle section and put his head on that. So now they stick together. And this I'm going to make his hat out of. I'm going to flatten it, and I want that hat to have like these ornaments. When they come out of the oven are nice and hard, and you can color them with markers. You can color them with watercolor paints, tempera paints, acrylic paints. They take the paint really well. Here's his hat. Oh, that is a silly looking hat. Now I'm going to use my toothpick. I'm going to break it in half by putting my thumbs right in the middle and pushing outward. A toothpick should break pretty easily. Remember that the ends can be sharp and a little splintery, so do be careful. Ask for help if you need help with this. I'm going to take the sharp end. My toothpick is a round toothpick. It's very pointy. So I'm going to take the pointy ends and I'm going to stick it in. They'll bake just fine. Now I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to do some deep dots for the eyes. You could take a clove or a Tic Tac or something and make a nose. But I'm keeping this pretty simple. Like that. I could probably take cloves and stick those little spicy cloves in. And now let's make a hole for hanging him on the tree. I might need, since I put water on this guy and he's pretty flat, I'm going to use my spatula to pick him up, put him on a cookie sheet. There you go, buddy boy. Okay. I also want to show you making a little trout fish. Now, a trout is a kind of a funny thing to hang on a Christmas tree. However, in the very ancient times, sometimes the Christians would make the sign of a fish, something that looked like this. Oops, something that would look like this. to indicate that they would be meeting together to worship and pray. And sometimes the fish is still used to symbolize Christianity. So what I'm going to do is start by making kind of a long teardrop shape. This is going to be a big trout. And I'm going to make a little slice where the mouth is going. Could be a whale too, right? If you wanted to make a whale, you could make a whale. I'm going to take a tiny little bit of this and I'm going to make the tail of this fish because I want it to be kind of like a big V-shaped tail. I kind of split it in half there. Here's his open mouth. I'm going to use this to make an eye. And I'm going to use the round part of my butter knife to make scales like this. You know what else he needs? He needs a couple more fins. When this bakes, it's going to puff up a little bit. It's going to be kind of fun. And now I'm going to make some stripes. I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm just going to make some stripes by pushing this knife into my little fish guy. I'm going to use a little bit more of this. And make a little tiny fin. Your fingers can pinch this into many different shapes. Just remember, every time you're going to add 2 pieces, put a little dot of water on it. Press a few more lines in there. I make a fin at the top and the bottom. And I think I still have enough of this dough to make the 4th ornament, which is going to be a little angel. Here's a little more water, right where I'm going to stick this to the top of my fish. I'm going to put some lines in that. Stick. There you go. I'll make a little bottom fin. My fins, I don't know if they're very accurate fishy fin shapes, but they work for me. So I put a little water there and I'm going to stick that down at the bottom. Where am I going to put the hole for this guy? Maybe I'll put it right up here in his mouth, as though he were stuck on a little fisherman's hook. And there's my little trout fish that's going to go in the oven. One tool I didn't think I'd have enough dough to use with is a garlic press, a garlic squeezer. If you have one of these, it makes dandy hair. So I've got enough dough left to make a 4th ornament, which is a little angel. And I'm going to take a tiny bit off. This will be the hair. I'm going to squeeze that later. And I'm going to make a ball out of about half of the dough that's left. This is going to be the angel's face. It's kind of like a cherub. I'm going to flatten that a little bit. It's going to be a little round face, little cherub. I'm going to divide what's left into 2 pieces. These are going to be the wings. So I'm going to make little balls out of them. They don't have to be too round. In fact, I like the wings if they're kind of a little squarish looking. I'm going to press those flat. And I'm going to, not only am I going to put notched lines in it, but when I get to the edge of the wing, I'm going to let it cut down through. So that might separate when it bakes. It would be pretty cool because it puffs up a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing on this. I try to make them about the same size. And remember, when I get towards the edge of that wing, I'm going to make a, they kind of look like hands, don't they? Mm-hmm. And I can also put some more texture with that, the tip of that rounded knife. It's a pretty useful tool for something that just comes out of the kitchen drawer. I am going to put a little bit of water on this because this has to stick behind our angel face. Kind of a little cherub. He's cute as a button. All right. Now I'm going to use the pencil and make 2 little eyes. And I'm going to draw a little mouth like that. We can paint that in. And I'm going to take a tiny little, itty bitty little dot of this salty dough. Put a tiny dot of water on the center. And stick down a little nose. Now this is the fun part. I'm going to put that last little, look, we've used up all of our clay, all of our salt. I'm going to put that inside my garlic press. And when I squeeze it out, oh, mama pajama, look at all that great angel hair. Now, I better get ready with water on this guy because this is a little fragile, all this angel hair stuff. I'm going to squeeze it till it's done, and I'm just going to pile it up on top of that little dough face. And I have to cut it off with this not sharp butter knife. but it's perfect for this job. Now that I've got all that nice loopy little thready salt dough, I can kind of like manage the hairdo a little bit. Yeah! Oh! Cute as a button. I'm going to drip a little water down through the hair just with my finger, and this will help any of the salt dough that's a little bit loose, and I'm worried that it might fall off, and it's going to stick it down. Now this guy is kind of flat in the wing department, so I'm going to use my spatula to pick him up, him or her, and put him or her on the cookie sheet. What happens next? We are going to bake this low and slow. And what that means is the oven temperature is pretty low. It's 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And you bake these pieces for at least 45 minutes, most probably an hour. And if you go for an hour and 15 minutes, you'll be just fine. They're going to get a little golden looking, and when they come out, I'll show you what they look like. Then you can paint them and color them any way you want. You could use nail polish on them, or, as I said, any of the other colored markers, watercolors, tempera paints, or acrylic paints. You could use glitter paints on them. And you're going to have one of these hooks. Don't worry about putting this on before it bakes. The only thing you need to add before it bakes is the little arms for your snowman. But when this comes out of the oven, you can slide the open end through one of the holes and close it up a little bit, and then you can hang it right on your tree. I've had these ornaments in the oven for 1 hour at 250 degrees. I checked them 15 minutes ago, so 45 minutes into the baking. I checked them, and they were hard on the top, but ever so slightly a little soft, like I could push my thumbnail. They're still a little bit springy, but you know what? I think they're going to be fine. You could bake them a little longer if you wanted. When I first took them off at 45 minutes, I did have to use the spatula to kind of shave them up off the cookie sheet. But you know, I don't think you should grease the cookie sheet because you don't want any oils on these. They'll last a few years, maybe 10, if they don't have any oils on them and if they don't get wet. So here's my little snowman guy. Look at the toothpicks are in there nice and firm. You can see he's a little sparkly looking. That's from the salt. And here's my little angel. And I put a hole in each wing of the angel. You could put a sewing thread or a piece of string through the wings, and that's a lot nicer than putting a hole right in the head of the angel. He looks kind of cute. He puffed up a little bit, right? Okay. And here's my trout, my little fish symbol. That looks really nice. Those textures for the scales look really good. And here's my challah bread, which I would probably color that in a nice golden brown like a challah. This is a fairly large ornament, and you have enough in your kit to make these 4 ornaments. But the recipe is also in your kit. I'm going to tell you what the recipe is now. It's 1 cup of salt, regular kitchen salt, 2 cups of flour, and 1 cup of water. Stir the salt and the flour together well, because once you add the water, you want your dry ingredients really combined, and you're going to get a really good dough. You can keep your extra dough wrapped up in plastic wrap in the refrigerator for a few days, and as you continue to make ornaments. Also, you're going to want to wash your hands afterwards because the salt really dries out your skin, and then maybe you want to put a little lotion on. But it's a non-toxic salt dough. It's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy making salt dough Christmas ornaments in your Advent kit bag. I hope you enjoy making these salt dough ornaments. It's a lot of fun for me. And Merry Christmas.